Chapter 2, My Mission. Under the cover of night fog, I couldn't clearly see the other person's face, but from his silhouette, I recognized immediately that it was beaming. Who else could it be? The situation in front of me didn't allow further thoughts. My priority was to ensure my survival. If I were hit, given his strength against my half-baked thunder discharge technique, there would only be one outcome: I'd be pounded into pulp. No other choice, I had to give it my all. I channeled the remaining dark power to my hands, and a faint black mist enveloped them. I used the same method as before a heat-and clash. After experiencing the bitterness of that exchange tenfold for one strength technique in many battles later, I understood the importance of skill. Both my fists collided with his. Boom. It felt like my entire body was being torn apart by his formidable strength. I was sent flying and coughed up a mouthful of blood. I crashed heavily onto the ground about 5 meters away. If I hadn't used the dark power, just that one punch could have taken away half my life. I didn't know why he didn't continue pursuing. If he had thrown another punch, I would have had no chance. I struggled to get up from the ground, stumbled a bit, and managed to stand, but I couldn't hold back another mouthful of blood. He let out an astonished sound. Huh? I strained to lift my head and looked closely. I was taken aback. The formidable enemy who wanted to take my life was actually my father. With difficulty, I asked, "Father? Why is it you?" A satisfied smile appeared on my father's face as he said, "I didn't expect that you could withstand my 2 punches. Now I can entrust you with the mission." Complete the mission? My mind was filled with confusion. Father continued, "I used 10% of my strength for the first punch and added another 10% for the second. I thought you wouldn't be able to stand up, but you surprised me by still standing. You've been working hard lately." That must have been the reason for his odd behavior earlier. Bitterness filled my heart. Was this truly my father? He paid no heed to his son's life. If my strength were a bit lower, I'd probably be with my grandmother in the afterlife. "What was that black mist on your hands just now?" Father asked. I was secretly alarmed, recalling my grandmother's words about not letting my father know about the dark demon art's existence. I feigned ignorance and said, "What black mist? Are you mistaken? Maybe it's just really dark outside." Father, being straightforward, didn't think much about it. He only frowned slightly and said, "All right, go back now. Come find me tomorrow morning. I have a task for you." I nodded and calmly replied, "Understood." With that, I turned and walked back with my aching body. Beaming's physique was indeed robust. Coupled with my completion of the first stage of the thunder discharge technique's transformation in one night, my injuries were already about 70 to 80% healed. What mission did my father want me to complete? Leading troops into battle was unlikely. Several of my older brothers were at home. It wouldn't make sense to send a junior like me onto the battlefield. What could this task be? Aside from warfare, with my father's reputation among the orcs, there wasn't much that couldn't be accomplished with a simple order. Did it really require me? With a restless heart, I arrived at the door of my father's chambers and lightly knocked. Father's deep voice resonated, "Who's there?" "Father, it's me, Lei Xiang. Come in." I pushed the door open and walked into the room. Father was seated in a grand chair, squinting at me. I stood calmly, unaffected by his piercing gaze. "Lei Xiang, you've grown up. I always thought you were the most useless one, but ever since your rampage 4 years ago, your performance has greatly satisfied me. Although you don't possess your brother's imposing physique, your strength is on par with theirs, and your potential even surpasses them. The Orc King has entrusted me with a significant task. I intend to send you to complete it." So, it was a task assigned by the Orc King. I maintained my composure, using only a calm voice to inquire, "What task is it?" "Please tell me, I will complete it." Whatever difficulties I faced, I would overcome them. I wanted to become a supreme powerhouse and show my father that, despite concealing my hatred for him, I would not let it show until I was strong enough. The seed of revenge for my grandmother was deeply rooted in my heart. I would repay her death. "Very well, indeed my son Leo. The Orc King wishes for me to send someone undercover to the human realm. You see, we orcs have always been the weakest among the three major races. Why is that? Firstly, we lack the ability to use magic. Secondly, our average intelligence is lower. We lack exceptional commanders like the humans. This task involves infiltrating the human realm to gather their tactical and magical information. Undercover in the human realm? Yes, you're only 16 this year, and most importantly, you possess human blood in your veins. With your human appearance, you can easily blend in with their population. I'm giving you 5 to 10 years to learn everything you can. Afterward, we'll spend another 10 years training our forces. Once that's done, the continent will belong to us orcs. You should understand the gravity of this task. If you successfully complete it, the position of Beaming King will be yours. Father's words rang true. It seemed the Orc King wasn't a fool. He understood the shortcomings of our people. This was a well-conceived plan. Whether I could execute it was another matter. This opportunity was great for me too. Learning human knowledge was the best way to enhance my strength. Besides, I had orc blood within me. I wanted to see the orcs rise to power, a vision my grandmother would be proud of. Firmly and confidently, I replied, "Father, rest assured, I won't disappoint you." Father nodded in satisfaction and said, "Very well, tomorrow I will take you to meet the Orc King. Then I'll have well-versed merchants familiar with human customs train you for 3 months. After that, you'll be ready to depart." "Yes, Father. I'll take my leave now." With his approval, I exited his room. Walking back to my quarters, my heart was in turmoil. This was a new experience, something I hadn't encountered in 4 years. Humans? People who looked just like me. I, Lei Xiang, was on my way to the human realm. Back in my room, my excitement still simmered. I decided to train. Donning my training attire, I stepped into the courtyard. Concentrating, I infused dark power throughout my body. Then, with a resounding shout, I commenced practicing the Thunder 18 fist technique my father had taught me. This set of fist techniques was designed for charging headlong into battle, a perfect fit for Beaming's robust physique. It was grand and forceful, tailored for direct confrontation. It felt as if the air itself was my enemy. I exerted my full strength with each punch, and the continuous boom, boom, boom echoed beneath my fists, causing dust to rise in the courtyard. I continued until I was utterly spent, sweat drenching me, though I couldn't deny the profound satisfaction. Visiting the palace of the Orc King for the first time, I marveled at the grand architecture around me. Though the craftsmanship was rough, every structure exuded a powerful aura. The buildings were all constructed from enormous granite stones, and despite their crude design, they appeared exceptionally sturdy and imposing. Father and I halted before the largest building. The leopard guards stationed at the entrance respectfully greeted Father, "Greetings, King Leo." Father nodded and instructed, "Pass on the message for me." The guard bowed and said, "Of course." He then turned and shouted loudly, "King Leo seeks an audience." The waves of his voice spread like ripples, and quickly reached the interior of the palace. Within a short while, another leopard guard emerged from the palace, approaching Father and addressing him with respect, "King Leo, His Majesty awaits you." I followed Father into the most magnificent building I had ever seen. The Orc King sat there. I couldn't gauge his height from my position, but he must have been larger than me. He appeared to be about the same age as Father. Seated regally, he wore a python robe and a jade belt, with a sparkling crown atop his head. He was studying me just as I was observing him. His eyes radiated intensity, hinting at his strength, not to be underestimated. His astute gaze was unlike anything I'd seen before. It was no wonder he could be the ruler of the orcs. He truly possessed extraordinary qualities. "Leo, this is your youngest son, I presume?" If you hadn't mentioned it, I would have mistaken him for a human. "Yes, Your Majesty. My son's mother is a human, and he has inherited the strength of our Beaming tribe, as well as his mother's appearance." The Orc King marveled, "No wonder you said your youngest son was the best candidate for infiltration. Humans would never suspect his orc lineage." Child, the rise and fall of our orcs rest on your shoulders. Do not let your father and me down. Yes, your majesty. I pledge my loyalty until death. All right, Liao Jr., how's your martial arts progressing? Father laughed heartily and said, Your Majesty, you can rest assured about this. He can already withstand 3/4 of my strength in a single palm strike. Father was exaggerating for the sake of his own pride. I have trouble even blocking 2/4. Although he doesn't have the physique of our beaming tribe, he certainly possesses beaming strength. The Orc King didn't doubt Father's words and exclaimed with delight, a true hero emerges from the youth. Very well, let's settle it. Lei Xiang will be the one to infiltrate the Dragon God Empire undercover. This matter is highly confidential, and you mustn't reveal it to anyone. I haven't even informed our allies, the demons, about this operation. Lei Xiang, you might face significant challenges, but remember, this mission demands success, not failure. Otherwise, I won't show mercy. Once you complete this task, I will appoint you as your father's successor and the next ruler of the Beaming Tribe. The Orc King's words combined kindness and power, illustrating his seriousness about the mission. I immediately knelt down and proclaimed, Yes, Your Majesty, I will not fail your trust. The Orc King then turned to Father and said, Very well, that's settled. Tomorrow, I'll send well-chosen merchants to your estate to teach Lei Xiang human etiquette and customs. Father replied, Yes, Your Majesty. I shall take my leave with my son. As we left the palace, Father surprisingly patted my shoulder affectionately, saying with joy, Son, you must bring honor to our Beaming Tribe. This opportunity is exceptional, His Majesty holds you in high regard. I replied calmly, Yes, Father. Starting the day after meeting the Orc King, I began learning human etiquette from the merchants who had visited the Dragon God Empire. My memory and imitation skills surpassed their expectations. Originally planned for 3 months of training, I mastered their teachings in just 1 month. Since learning human manners and listening to their stories, my interest in the human realm grew stronger. After all, I possessed 1/4 of human blood in me. I wondered how my mother's homeland was. A resonant voice came from outside, Lei Xiang, Father is looking for you. It was my eldest brother, Lei Long. Among my 3 brothers, only he was relatively friendly to me. The other 2 brothers, they barely even acknowledged me. If they didn't bother to torment me, I considered it a good day. Stepping out of the house, the brilliant sunlight warmed me as I walked. Eldest brother's imposing figure appeared before me. Walking beside him, I felt incredibly small. Why did you come in person, big brother? Why didn't you send a messenger to notify me? I asked nonchalantly. I was with Father anyway, so I thought I'd stop by to see you. Heard you're going on a secret mission, and we might not see each other for quite some time, he said. I nodded without saying anything. Having witnessed my attitude for so long, he wasn't surprised. All right, here we are. Go in on your own. I'll be on my way. Sure. Goodbye. After my response, I walked directly into Father's room. Father was sitting behind his large desk, holding a stack of papers as he read. Father, I'm here, I announced. Father looked up, glanced at me, and then handed me the papers, saying, Take a look. This is your cover identity for your undercover mission. Memorize it on the journey, and you should have already mastered what those merchants taught you. Don't delay, pack your belongings, and set out quietly tomorrow. I took the papers and saw my false identity, name, Lei Xiang. Origin, Lomo Village, near the city of Ica in the Dragon God Empire. Father, Lei Fu, artisan. Mother, Shadi, artisan. Fond of martial arts from a young age. Father passed away when I was 10, and mother when I was 13. Been wandering the continent alone for 3 years, introverted personality. The rest was a detailed introduction to my fake identity. From the information, it was clear that the person with the same name had been eliminated by Father's subordinates. It was Father's usual way, he didn't leave any openings for the enemy. I turned back to look at the city I had lived in for 16 years, took a deep breath, and began my journey to complete the mission. Father arranged for me to head directly to the Dragon God Empire's capital, Dragon City. There, I would find the Tiandu Academy, one of the 4 major human academies. My mission was to study there, absorb as much knowledge as possible, and be prepared for the Academy's enrollment exam in August. Although it was currently May, I needed to arrive at the Academy before August. The weather today was splendid, the sky an unblemished blue canvas. The trees lining the road occasionally echoed with the chirps of birds. Having left behind the cage I had lived in for 16 years, I felt as refreshed as the clear sky above. Donning a warrior's attire and a large bamboo hat that cast a 3-foot-long shadow, I concealed my appearance from the outside world. This was still an orc territory, and humans were far from welcome. So, I had to cover my human features to avoid unnecessary trouble. Before leaving home, I visited Mother. She remained unchanged, her gaze vacant, her words scarce. Even when I visited, she remained indifferent. "Mother, I'm going on a long journey. I might not be back for a while," I informed her. She glanced at me but turned away, showing no interest. It seemed that my life and death didn't concern her. Over the years, I had grown numb to it all. Except for my grandmother, there was no warmth from anyone. Yet, she was still my mother. Despite not raising me, she gave birth to me. I sighed deeply and said, "Mother, I'm going to the Dragon God Empire this time." Upon hearing my words, she trembled all over and turned back, her eyes regaining a hint of humanity. I nodded firmly, "Yes, I'm going there to complete a secret mission." From beneath the mattress, she pulled out a small silver bell, shaking it to produce a clear sound. The bell seemed to be made of a special material, emitting a faint blue light. Her expression was complex, shifting from tenderness to anger, then to helplessness. She reluctantly handed the bell to me, a tear dropping onto its surface. "You must find someone named Lin Feng in the Dragon God Empire and give him this bell. Tell him that Ling Ling is sorry for him," she said, and tears welled up, streaming down her face. I stood there holding the bell, unsure of what to do. Seemingly exhausted from crying, she retrieved a necklace from her clothing. Silver beads were strung together to form the necklace, and a delicate amethyst dragon pendant dangled from it. She looked at me in silence, then hung the necklace around my neck. "I've never taken care of you for a day, but if you help me complete this task, consider this necklace your reward." Her words were as cold as ever. I fought back the overwhelming sadness within me, gripping the amethyst dragon tightly, its sharp edges piercing my palm. I took a deep breath to steady myself and said, "All right, I'll make sure to deliver it." With that, I left without looking back at the mother who had given birth to me yet never cared for me. But as I was leaving, I asked my elder brother to look after her. Now quite a distance from the orc capital, I began to feel better. The realization that I was venturing far from home for the first time filled everything with novelty. The sun had climbed high into the sky, and despite it being May, its rays were scorching. After a morning of walking, I was growing tired. I noticed a makeshift shelter by the side of the road. It seemed to be a place where food might be sold. I quickened my pace, and indeed, it was a fruit stand. An elderly female wolfkin, likely in her 50s, ran the stand. Seeing me approach, she asked, "What fruits would you like to buy? These are all grown by me and are absolutely fresh." I took out a silver coin and tossed it over, saying coldly, "A bit of everything." Seeing my less than pleasant demeanor, she didn't protest and immediately wrapped a portion of each fruit. It was quite an extensive collection, enough to feed 10 people. I certainly couldn't finish it all. "No need for this much. Take out 3/4 of it. The rest is yours," I instructed. The elderly woman looked pained, saying, "But I won't have change to give you." I thought to myself, can't she even make change for a silver coin? Were the lives of orcs really this hard? I asked, "Is life this difficult?" "No need for change. Just give me the extra fruit." She looked at me with a complex expression and replied, "You're a kind person. Year after year of war, this place is relatively better off since it's close to the capital. People in the war zones have it even harder. Among us orcs, only soldiers and those with strong martial prowess can have a meal. People like me, who can't fight, struggle to make ends meet. This extra fruit will be enough? I took the fruit from her as she pulled it out, saying with sadness, "You really are a good person. We've been at war for so long. Although we're near the capital, those in the war zones have it even worse. We orcs, only those in the army or with formidable strength can afford food. For those like me who can't fight, scraping by is already an achievement. This fruit will suffice, right?" I nodded in agreement, and as I turned to go, a sinister voice echoed, "Kid, leave everything valuable on you and we might spare your life. Otherwise, you'll be tonight's feast for us." I turned to find 3 individuals surrounding me. A bearkin, a foxkin, and a wolfkin. The one who spoke was likely the foxkin, the craftiest of the orc races. They seemed quite ordinary. I snorted, "Robbery, is it?" All 3 of them burst into laughter, and the bearkin sneered, "Of course, why else would we be stopping you? If not for robbery, what else would we be doing? Quit the chatter, hand over your valuables, or else you'll become dinner for us." I had turned slightly and thrown a heavy punch at the bearkin, who was the strongest among them. They clearly hadn't anticipated me striking back, and the bearkin, in particular, met my attack without any hesitation. He extended his massive bare paw to intercept my punch. If I weren't wearing the bamboo hat, they probably would have seen a hint of a sneer on my lips. The first one to suffer was the bearkin. The clash between our fists produced a deep, resonant sound, and both he and I heard the sound of his bones shattering. Before he could even scream, his large body was sent flying 5 meters away. I was confident in my own strength. I knew he wouldn't be returning to rob anyone anytime soon. As the bearkin was sent soaring, the weapons in the hands of the wolfkin and foxkin simultaneously slashed at my left shoulder and right back. These 2 weapons came down together, yet it felt like they struck a steel plate instead of a person. The weapons were jolted from their intended course, as if they had hit solid steel, not a flesh and blood body. They didn't even graze my clothes. I paid no attention to them and continued my rotation, delivering a heavy kick to the foxkin's chest. The sound of bones breaking was distinct, and like the bearkin, he was sent crashing heavily to the ground. Blood gushed from his every orifice, and it was clear he wouldn't survive. The wolfkin, stunned by what he had just witnessed, dropped his knife, and the foxkin's sword was also jolted away. I looked at them calmly, reached down to pick up the foxkin's sword, then spun around and kicked it with precision into the wolfkin's chest. The blade accurately struck his vital point, nailing him to a nearby tree with a sharp thud. I walked over slowly to the wolfkin, who was still gasping for breath, and said coolly, "So, it was you who taught me the principle of the survival of the fittest. I hope in your next life, you'll be a bit wiser." The wolfkin whimpered, You. Ruthless." And then he breathed his last. The fruit stand's old lady had long since cowered into a ball, shivering in fear. I walked over to her stand, picked up the fruits I'd bought, and tossed her a gold coin, remarking, "Bury them." With that, I turned and left, leaving behind the startled old woman and the corpses of my attackers. I felt no remorse for taking their lives. Father had taught me from a young age that in the orc world, strength was the only currency that mattered. Weakness could only be food and prey for the strong. These lessons were well ingrained in me. No one would show pity for the weak, and enemies must be treated without mercy. I had to strike to kill, leaving no room for retaliation, even if it was a lion attacking a rabbit. Once I ventured beyond the capital's borders, I realized that the fruit stand incident was only the beginning of my journey of slaughter. Orcish bandits and marauders were everywhere. Apart from the heavily guarded major towns, scenes of burning, killing, and looting were common. It's no wonder that despite the superior physical conditions of orcs compared to humans and demons, they ranked last among the 3 major races. Their prevailing culture was one of everyone fearing each other, hindering any possibility of development into a true power. Well, I'll do Orc King justice and clean up this mess. Describing my journey through the orc territory as a bloody path is no exaggeration. Any bandit or marauder who crossed my path met swift and thunderous justice. As time went on, I lost count of the lives I took, becoming utterly desensitized. Through this journey, I understood why orcs couldn't surpass humans. Despite their innate courage, they had few true experts. Among the hundreds I slaughtered, not a single one could be considered a skilled commander. Leveraging the formidable strength inherited from the Beaming clan, wherever I went felt like a tiger among sheep. Finally, I reached the border between the Orc territory and the Dragon God Empire. The Stru fortress of the Dragon God Empire stood where the two territories met, its massive walls blocking the Orc advance. Approaching the fortress, I shouted, "Could the generals open the gate for me?" A human figure resembling a commander on the wall looked down and asked, "Who are you?" Reciting the lines I had long prepared, I replied, "I'm a merchant conducting business in the Orc territories. Our caravan was attacked by Orc bandits, and I'm the only one who managed to escape. As you can see, I'm a human." With that, I removed the bamboo hat I had been wearing for over a month. After glancing into the distance, the commander's tone softened considerably as he said, "These damn Orc bandits. You're not the first to fall victim to them. But it's foolish to risk your life for business there. It's not worth it. Open the gate a bit to let him in." After a short while, the gate creaked open slightly, and a few guards ushered me in. The commander from earlier was among them. Seeing my handsome appearance and tall stature, he took a liking to me and asked, "Did you suffer significant losses?" I pretended to sigh and said, "Don't mention it. Just making it back alive is already a stroke of luck. You have no idea how terrifying Orc bandits can be. They kill at the drop of a hat and loot anything they see." The commander said, "All right, don't dwell on it. Relax. You can be sure our Dragon God Empire will eventually wipe them out. Go on, rest in the city. You have nothing to fear once you're within our human territory." I expressed my gratitude profusely and felt a weight lifted off my chest. The Stru fortress was built on the foundation of Stru City. It was my first time in a human city, and everything seemed so novel. This place was indeed much more prosperous than Orc territory. The streets were bustling with activity, full of people buying and selling, exuding an air of prosperity. Following the merchant's advice, I found a relatively clean inn to spend the night. I planned to rest for the night and continue my journey to Dragon City in the morning. Once I arrived in the human territory, I felt it unnecessary to continue wearing the bamboo hat. It was the first time I had seen so many people who resembled me. It was somewhat exciting, despite my modest stature among the Beaming. Yet here, almost no one's height could compare to mine. Walking down the streets, I felt like a crane amidst a flock of chickens. Many passing women cast curious or intrigued glances my way, making my face flush. The merchant's teacher had mentioned that my appearance was considered quite handsome among humans. I had thought that in the Dragon God Empire, my looks might attract the attention of many girls, but I hadn't anticipated their boldness. It seemed the human girls were much more comfortable to be around than female orcs. Maybe it was because of our similar appearances, that's what I told myself. The city had no traces of war, and everyone seemed to coexist harmoniously. After taking a stroll around the city and buying some food, I returned to the inn. The night had grown late, and I retrieved a map of the Dragon God Empire from my belongings. The capital, Dragon City, was still over 3,900 kilometers away. It was quite a distance, and I thought it best to get an early start tomorrow. This way, I'd have more time to prepare for the upcoming entrance exam. Putting the map away, I sat cross-legged on the bed and began practicing according to the manual of the demonic heaven technique. A chilling sensation gradually spread through my entire body. Lately, I felt that my progress with the demonic heaven technique was surprisingly rapid. Although I had only practiced the second level for a little over half a year, I could already use some intermediate level dark magic. The fusion of dark power and the thunder armor disassembly also seemed more seamless than before. Could it be because of the recent surge in the number of people I killed? I wasn't entirely sure. The demonic heaven technique was the highest level technique of the demon race, belonging to the category of combining martial arts and magic. The foundational techniques of the first segment leaned toward concepts of slaughter, darkness, and ruthlessness. As I had killed numerous bandits, my practice seemed to align well with the requirements of the demonic heaven technique, leading to my rapid advancement.